we had legislation called Race to the Top, and really states were bribed essentially to be part of it and to apply for these grants, these Race to the Top grants that came in like when we were having the recession. And schools were especially hard hit for money, and states were really hard hit for money. And you know, how could you as a governor say, oh, I didn't apply for that grant?
There's a lot that's shocking, but one of the things that's shocking is I've read a lot of the founding documents of the Common Core, and there's such minimal scholarly foundation for it. I mean, the lead writer of the English Language Arts Standards is a man named David Coleman. He was a McKinsey consultant, you know, one of these groups that's really good about helping businesses become more efficient and things like that. And it's like, you're writing America's literacy standards, right? He's never really taught at a college or any lower level. So he has no practitioner knowledge. He has no research knowledge. And like, maybe this wouldn't matter if the standards were good, but the standards are just, you know, just about regurgitating.
So if you follow sort of the money trail, because of Common Core, the books had to be redone, the curriculum materials had to be redone, the SAT had to be redone. I mean, there was a lot of money changing hands to do this. So this wasn't done in the best interest of children. This was done in the best interest of people who wanted to, in my view, make money and, you know, distort our democracy.
The thing about the Common Core is that it influences instruction in virtually every topic that uses letters or numbers. So, you know, the ELA standards, English Language Arts Standards, they can influence social studies because now you're given a passage of text about social studies. Science, you're given a passage about science. Art, right? Art class used to be a great place to paint, to draw, to sculpt. Now it's largely, you know, the way it's put is it's about conceptual understanding. So I believe in accountability, but I have schools accountable to the local people who are paying the taxes and who are running the schools. And you either trust people or you don't. And if you believe in democracy, you have to trust people.
Professor Tampio explained to us in class how and in his speech that we attended, that his interest in the Common Core began because of family matters, but it's really impressive that he's tried to help not just his own family find an adequate education, but to help all students pursue the education that is best for them to reach their full potential.
Nick had a really interesting view because he was tackling this topic both from the standpoint of being a professor and seeing students come in and knowing what skills, and also being a parent and seeing what was happening to his own children's education. But because he had that clout of being a professor, and he really, you know, approached it sort of with an academic researcher mindset, that really, I think, made a difference.
I once met a parent and she told me that all I care about is this good or bad for my kids' education? And so when I wrote the book, I opted not to emphasize too much the story of Pearson or OECD, right? Because I'm thinking about this mom and she's like, well, if it's good, then I'm in favor of it. So I tried to actually show that it's bad. And now that we're convinced it's bad, we can then try to trace the story of how we got to this bad spot.
I know that he believes in local and state control of education and in parent involvement, but I would be interested in a more specific plan. In the C-SPAN, he talked about the possibility of having a series of potential frameworks for education rather than a free-for-all. It would just be interesting to see what kind of frameworks he would be interested in, if he knows of any specific academics that have had good ideas there.
So my ideal for the country is to have a lot of options that people are excited about. And so you could think of a garden with lots of different flowers, and each of these flowers representing a different school of thought. So you could have Waldorf, traditional Christian, progressive, French immersion, outdoor school, vocational, just good public schools where teachers can teach what they're excited about, right? I mean, I went to a public school and one of my teachers was Jewish and he taught a month-long unit on the Holocaust. Tremendous opportunity to learn about this important historical moment. Maybe there's a teacher who wants to teach about something else and they're not connected in the same way, but maybe they could teach about the Rwanda, right? And they could teach a month on Rwanda. And so it's, very important, but it's different. And so, so the question is, what I would want is, I want there to be a lot of different options.
One of the first things I remember reading was he talked about the kind of skills that he looks for in students when they come, and like what makes somebody, because he was a university professor, he knows what undergraduates who come well prepared look like and which ones are doing very well in college and going on to fulfill their potential in life. And he was saying that like what the Common Core was requiring was the exact opposite of what he values in his students and what we as a society should be valuing in students. Independent thought is and creativity and defending your own opinion, and those are not things that are a part of the Common Core.
The Common Core had the concrete effect of making my kids hate school. And I'm like, why did we do that? It was a really good school district, but right now it's all about standardized test prep. So the test refusal movement has really been great because it's basically been a way for parents to say, we don't like what's happening, that this system is broken, you didn't ask us about the Common Core, you didn't ask us about the test, didn't ask us about the high stakes accountability, we're going to let you know that we're not satisfied. And one thing I did in my book is I tried to give focus to the test refusal movement.
So the opt-out movement has had an impact. I don't think any of the issues about whole child education and what's been lost, or those discussions would even be taking place without the opt-out movement. And state tests used to take up 3 days. Now they've reduced it to 2, which is a little bit of an improvement, but still not enough because it's still having, an undue influence on what happens in kids' classrooms.
The silver lining for the Common Core fight for me has been that parents all around the country are connecting, are reaching out, are saying, listen, we disagree on what flower we want for our own children, but we realize the benefits of a garden. We realize the benefits of local control. So, I would tell parents, do what you can in the local schools, but if you really want to make a difference, you have to, act locally, think globally. You have to think about what's happening in other parts and how you can be part of the political movement to change the system.
Like Nick, I really believe that in local control, and that local communities are really in a better place to determine what the children in their community need and what kind of education they need. And it's much more democratic.
I plan on reading his book, actually. I think it'll be useful for my research paper, but I also find it interesting. I'm interested in becoming a teacher, so the use of the Common Core and standardized testing is very interesting to me and important to my future.
But I think people like Nick Tampio and Diane Ravitch and other people that have been active in the opt-out movement and raise questions about Common Core were sort of like the canaries in the coal mine, and we're raising these questions when other people were just not paying attention.